Hi everyone, hope you've been having a good week. Have you ever worked on trying to learn how to do something new, whether it's cooking in the kitchen, riding a bicycle, or even if you can remember what it was like trying to tie your shoelaces for the first time? May have seemed kind of rough at first, or you may have been a little unsure, or maybe a little scared to try because you weren't sure if you're going to be able to do it right. But ultimately, hopefully, as you try to do things, you were able to gain your confidence and learn how to do it and really start to enjoy it. Kind of reminds me of our story today with someone from the Bible named Timothy. Let's learn about him.
God's story. Timothy. So part of God's story is about a guy named Timothy, and it begins like this. A boy named Timothy, let's call him Tim, was living in a town called Lystra with his grandma Lois and his mom Eunice. These two women taught Tim about God. They also taught him to enjoy spending time with God, just like how you can enjoy spending time with your friends. Tim knew a lot about God and had heard that God was going to send his son Jesus to rescue people from all the wrong things in the world. But since there weren't any TVs or newspapers back then, Tim didn't know that Jesus was already here. One day, a man named Paul came to Tim's city and told the people there that God had sent Jesus to the world, and we can know him and follow him. Tim wanted Paul to teach him to follow Jesus. He also wanted to learn other things Paul knew, like how to pray for his friends, how he could know God even better, and how to tell God's story. Kids, can you imagine loving to learn so much that you go to school all the time? You start following your teacher home on weekends and going with your teacher on vacation. You even go to school in the summer. That's kind of what Tim did. He followed Paul everywhere so he could learn new stuff about God all the time. But they didn't stay in one city. They went on a journey to a lot of cities, like Corinth, Greece, Jerusalem, Rome, Athens, Phrygia, Galatia, Mysia, Troas, Neapolis, Philippi, Apollonia, Berea, Thessalonica, and back again. Have you ever taken a trip with one of your best friends? When you spend a lot of time together, you learn a lot about each other. Well, Tim spent a lot of time with Paul, and he learned so much from him. And all those things he learned, he started telling other people. Some people thought Tim was too young to teach things to grown-ups, but Paul said to Tim, "Don't ever let people tell you that you're too young to tell them about God. You can show them how to act like Jesus." Kids, those things he said are in the Bible. 1 Timothy 4:12. Check it out. Remember, Paul knew a lot about God, and he was right. You're never too young to learn to act like Jesus. Anyway, in Tim's day, a lot of people were doing some pretty not nice things. Like some people tried to get their way all the time, or called their friends names. Others even did things like burp at the table right after their moms asked them not to. And they didn't even say, "Excuse me." Tim showed them how to act like Jesus. After a while, Tim and Paul couldn't be together all the time, but that was okay because Paul still wrote lots of letters to Tim, and Tim was able to keep learning. And even though Tim was still learning, he started to tell people about God. You don't need to know everything about God to tell other people about him, kids. Just share what you know. Now, the problem for Tim was sometimes he felt scared. He wasn't afraid of the usual stuff: spiders, dogs, darkness, heights, snakes, dentists, germs, even fluffy pillows. Or maybe that last one's just me. Where were we? Oh yeah, Tim was scared to tell people about God because he thought nobody wanted to listen to him. In his letters, Paul taught Tim that he didn't have to be scared of anything because God is with him, and you don't have to be scared either. God's with you too. Tim learned a lot of other things from Paul's letters too, like how he should always tell the truth, how he should make friends with people who are lonely, and how he should not be worried about looking cool or getting a lot of awesome new stuff. Remember, learning about God was Tim's favorite thing to do, so that's what he kept doing his whole life. And that's the story of Timothy. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Tim liked learning about God. He followed his teacher Paul all around the world and kept learning. He also showed a bunch of people what it looks like to follow God. Because Tim followed God, he wasn't as scared about things or worrying about stuff that didn't matter. And that's a part of God's story.
I think that's really awesome. We can learn that no matter what age we are or how much we've learned from church so far, that we can always do something to help out with God. And that kind of reminds me, you think about if you ever learned how to play a song or sing music or any things that we talked about earlier, that one thing that you may have noticed that when you practice over and over again and you try things, that eventually you're going to learn how to do it. And the great part is that we have God there to help us. He said in Philippians 4:13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," which means just like Timothy, who was maybe a little bit nervous to talk to people when he was young, he found that strength and encouragement for God because he kept at it and he felt good about it and he wanted to do those things for God. God gave him the strength for it. So the same thing can happen for you guys if you have the opportunity to tell others about God's love. And that kind of reminds me of our song today.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let him shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let him shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let him shine. Let him shine, let him shine, let him I will stomp my feet and I will clap my hands and shout, shout. I will run around and I'll jump off the ground and shout, shout. I will stomp my feet and I will clap my hands and shout, shout. I will run around, I'll jump off the ground and shout, shout. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And I will stomp my feet, and I will clap my hands and shout, shout. I will run around, and I'll jump off the ground and shout, shout. Jesus is the light, and I'm gonna let him shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let him shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let him shine. Let it shine, let him shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
How exciting to know that we can be a light for others in the world and we can shine for God. It reminds me of the promises that we have from God. Join me in Psalm chapter 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Goodbye.